Okay, and? Everyone sing along.
Sweet sounds.
Hi there, everyone.
Wow.
So
Look
let
at
me.
all the Doctor Who fans here.
So first of all, quick introductions. I'll start. Since this is my idea in the first place, I wrote to Emerald City Comic Con and said, "You want to do this?" And they said, "Yeah." And I said, "Whoa, that was easy." So anyway, I'm Eric Gjovaag, longtime Doctor Who fan, first-time Emerald City Comic Con panelist, and I got hooked on Doctor Who back in 1985 when Colin Baker was the Doctor.
Some Colin love.
Wow, Colin lovers. We didn't have those in '85. Everyone said he's no good. It's like, what? I like him. He's fine. Well, we'll get to that. We'll get to the polls. Don't worry. You'll get your chance. Then that was when I was going to school up in Bellingham at Western Washington University. Go Vikings! And then I moved back down to Seattle and started the Emerald City Androgums because there was already a group, but they met during the week. I wanted a group who could meet during the weekends at homes, and we just watched Doctor Who, and we've had fun, and we've been doing it for 23 years now. I know. And yet, you think that's something? Wait till he tells you what he's been up to.
Hi, I'm Ryan K. Johnson, and I've been a Doctor Who fan for 30 years this September when it started running on KVOS. Who remembers that? Yeah, a few little pause. All right, cool. Yeah, I started the Society of the Rusting TARDIS in 1985, and we've been meeting every month since then. And my big claim to fame is I made 4 fan videos with a female doctor back in the 1980s, which you might have seen on public access. They showed them continuously through the 80s and 90s. And you may have seen me doing pledge drives in the late 80s on KBTC.
And I'm Dan Murphy. I'm originally from the Boston area and watched WGBH PBS television, where I was first introduced to Doctor Who way back in 1980.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm a fan. Hi, kitty. Cat nuns.
So I thought I would start this with a little poll. Show of hands, please. How many of you watch Doctor Who on BBC America? Okay, now for the big test. How many of you watch Doctor Who on KBTC? Yeah.
Excellent.
Why aren't the rest of you? No, okay. And just a little curiosity here. How many people here from the Society of the Rusting TARDIS?
Jeff.
Welcome.
Yeah.
You.
Okay. How many people from the Emerald City Androgums? Okay, a couple more. How many of you, and I just discovered you guys this week, how many of you are from the Doctor Who Seattle Facebook group?
All one of you. Welcome.
So yeah, there's some actually some pretty active fandom in the Seattle, Tacoma, Western Washington, greater metropolitan area. So I figured we might as well start with a quick overview of local fandom. Ryan?
Can I ask one more poll question?
Yeah.
That is, how many people have been fans before 2005? Oh, quite a few of you. Okay.
Excellent.
Cool. So yeah, Seattle fandom.
Real quick.
Well, Doctor Who started in Western Washington on KVOS in September 1983 in the fine 11:30 p.m. Sunday slot when they were showing the TV movie version starting with Tom Baker with commercials.
The only place in the country doing that at the time.
This was mostly because Channel 9 here was totally allergic to Doctor Who and science fiction, except for Red Dwarf, which sort of snuck in the back door. Yes. And then in 1987, we heard that the Tacoma PBS station was interested in buying Doctor Who, but they said that we'd need $16,000. And could we come down and help them do a pledge drive to raise that much money? And they were hoping to raise maybe half of that, and then maybe 6 months later ask for more. And we actually made the whole $16,000 in about 4 hours. And they were amazed. And so they started running the, I guess it started with Tom Baker.
Tom Baker. They started with Tom, yeah.
Yeah. And except for a very short break, KBTC has been running Doctor Who continuously. They've made several runs through it all. I think they did show the Ecclestons, didn't they?
Briefly, yeah, they did the Ecclestons, but the feedback was basically, we've seen these already. We get these on, at the time it was sci-fi. Why are you showing that? Show us the stuff we can't get anywhere else. So now KBTC is pretty much classic Doctor Who.
The only place for it.
Nope. Only one of 2 places in the whole world that shows classic Doctor Who right now. The Sci-Fi Channel Australia picked it up.
That's it.
So that's it. Okay, so that's local fandom. Like I said, I moved down, and as much as I went to the Rusting TARDIS. It's like, this is not a competition thing. We're all one big happy Who family here. But I thought we needed, and to be fair, at the time there was no new Doctor Who coming out of Britain, so the Society of the Rusting TARDIS was showing other British shows, which is also fine. But I wanted an outlet for just showing Doctor Who, so I started the Emerald City Androgums, and we've been meeting, as I said, for some time. And eating, yes. That's the whole point of the Emerald City Androgums. It's like, if you're a couch potato, you want to be, you bring food, you eat someone else's food, you sit in front of a TV, you watch television. How bad is this? This is, we're a fun bunch. So I figured the place to start now is the very roots, the very beginnings of Doctor Who. Okay, so I know the run ended not too long ago on KBTC. How many of you have seen William Hartnell as the Doctor? Ah,
excellent.
Yes. The original, you might say. So yeah, so Doctor Who started in 1963. Little known trivia fact. This was the day after both John F. Kennedy and C.S. Lewis died. A lot of people bring up the C.S. Lewis thing because the TARDIS, let's face it, it is the wardrobe. It's just, instead of going to Narnia, you end up going anywhere. So. And it was a way of bridging the gap between, they had the sports shows in the afternoon, and then they had like the music shows in the evening, and they wanted something to keep the family audience. And they came up, this whole development thing just all kinds of memos going across to the BBC and stuff, and they came up with this idea of, what about science fiction? What about, and they started looking at adapting classic short stories and stuff, but then eventually they developed this whole idea of this old guy in a police box and his granddaughter and the 2 teachers, and it just kind of snowballed from there. So, I don't know, anything you guys want to say about Hartnell?
It was supposed to be mostly an educational
That's true,
series,
yes.
and Sidney Newman, who was the head of the BBC, had specifically said, no bug-eyed monsters. And he was actually quite upset when the Daleks appeared. And arguably the Daleks is what made Doctor Who.
Yeah,
and
no
they
kidding.
they were to Britain at that time what Star Wars was in the late 70s here. I mean, they were huge.
And if you go back and look at the original, I don't know if you know this, most of you probably don't. There was a whole bunch of stories that just because there was no market for them, in the 70s, they junked them. They were gone, wiped, completely destroyed. No one had any idea that there would be, hundreds of channels you could show these on, and there would be these little things you could put in a machine in front of your television that you could watch it again. So that, they had no concept that this could happen. But if you go back and look at the complete lineup, especially that first season, it starts off with a historical story, a scientific story, a historical story, a scientific story, and they alternated. So, Marco Polo, the Aztecs, the Reign of Terror, this has always been a part of the show, is go back in history, but back then it was just, let's observe history and see what's happening and be educational for the kids. Then they started throwing in more sci-fi elements and fewer guest appearances by historical figures, and just became the show it is now.
Another cool footnote about the Hartnell Era is that its first producer, Verity Lambert, now keep in mind, this is 1963, a female producer. She's only 28 years old, but she kicked off this 50-year phenomenon. Yeah. Thank you, Verity.
And she was seriously challenged by the higher echelons of the BBC. They said, what in the world is she doing here? She didn't go to Eton. She didn't chain smoke. I mean, so. Okay, so anyways, but William Hartnell was already a well-established actor, but he was not the healthiest of men even when the show started, and he just kept deteriorating. Finally came time to say, and I don't know if he was pushed, if he decided to go, it's still kind of unclear, but he was gone. So they said, well, gee, we like the show so much. Maybe we can keep it going a little bit longer. What if we recast him? Let's do something totally bizarre and different. Let's just get someone different. How about Patrick Troughton? What do you think of him?
Patrick Troughton?
Patrick Troughton. He's so totally different from William Hartnell. And Patrick Troughton said, no, it will never last with me. No. And they kept giving him more money. No, more money. No, more money. Okay. Apparently within, and of course, this is another story that's gone. His first story, of course, if you're going to have a new, totally recast the character, start with something big. They had the Daleks in his very first story. Power of the Daleks completely gone. Apparently all those viewers start off, those kids behind the couch saying, oh no, where is he? Where's our doctor? Where's our doctor? Within 2 episodes, they're all going, William who? So, and that's the bit worst part about all the junking is so much of Patrick Troughton's stories are missing and gone and completely. So, kept going, and now this was a time when the BBC was making the show year-round. Think about this. They were making a half-hour episode of Doctor Who every week. You watch sometimes, you'll notice that the Doctor or one of the companions isn't in for a couple of episodes. That's because they actually built in vacations into the shooting schedule. But they were shooting it year-round, and it was hard on everyone. Towards the end of Patrick Troughton's run in the late 60s, however, they started thinking, how are we going to change? How are we going to make it easier on everyone? So there was a week or 2 gap between some of the stories in that last season, and they eventually decided, why do we have to go year-round? Why don't we go half a year? We'll do 26 episodes a season. And Patrick Troughton's going, great. Oh, by the way, I'm leaving. So. And of course, the BBC was doing this brand new thing, color.
With a U.
With a U, right. Didn't I pronounce the U? Didn't you hear it?
No, sorry.
Okay. Well, it worked before. Let's do it again. Who are we going to cast? And they had a short list, and then they got this call from some guy's agent. Hey, have you guys considered John Pertwee as the Doctor? Looked at the list. Wouldn't you know, he's the second name on the list. So apparently this was meant to be. Pertwee, anyone? Comments?
He's mostly a comedian, and this was kind of his first sort of serious part. He'd mostly been doing radio, and they said, well, how do you want to play it? And he said, I don't know, just play yourself. He says, I don't know what that is.
But he was very much into gadgetry.
This is true. But here's the thing, to save money, because they were in color, and let's face it, Doctor Who has always been an expensive show to make. So to save money, they said, let's exile the Doctor on Earth. So we don't have to go out into space, and we don't have to build planet sets. That lasted about a season.
But they created a certain intelligence agency, didn't they?
Yes, they did. The United Nations Intelligence Task Force. As actually because they knew this transition was coming up, they came up with it. One of Patrick Troughton's last stories, they introduced UNIT so that when John Pertwee comes, that it's already established and it can make sense. So his doctor was UNIT's scientific advisor. Got to hang out with the Brigadier and Sergeant Benton and Captain Yates and
Joe Grant
and Corporal Bell and anyone knows her? Obscure Doctor Who character from the 70s. Okay, fine. And like I said, last about a season because slowly he started making a few trips back out into space, and then before long he was out in space the whole time. So UNIT got dropped after about 5 years, but by this point, John Pertwee had also said, yeah, I'm done. So who are we going to cast?
Hey, there's this cool actor who's been Rasputin. How about him? He seems wacky enough.
I don't know. Wasn't he also in one of the Sinbad movies?
Yeah.
She got introduced in the last season of John Pertwee. She was the third companion that he had after Liz Shaw and Joe Grant.
And the problem is we have 50 minutes to talk about a show that's gone on 50 years, and we want to give you guys a chance to bring up your things too. So we're trying to hit the highlights here.
50 years and 50 minutes. Go.
Okay, so Tom Baker, I think more than any other actor who's played the Doctor, was the Doctor. He was that. He was like that. He is still like that in real life. He's just this big, bigger than life, wild-eyed, bushy-haired guy, wears a long scarf. And it was the second really a second resurrection for Doctor Who. It was, the show was popular in Britain, but it kind of done this. Well, then along comes Tom Baker and just shoots right up again, and everything. All the kids are watching it again, and they're playing Doctor Who on the playground again, and he's a phenomenon, and he lasted 7 years. And a lot of people here might think, wow, David Tennant was the Doctor for a really long time. He's nothing.
After the first 3 seasons of Tom Baker, Time Life bought the rights to it and began showing them here. And they decided that Americans wouldn't quite understand what was going on and narrate them. And sometimes if you watch the episodes on PBS, you will hear this weird narration suddenly break in, like on Brain of Morbius's and Underworld sometimes.
Underworld sometimes, yeah.
And that's what that was all about, because basically were they aiming it to be on commercial stations. And so this guy would tell you what was going on, and they'd show clips and things like that. And eventually PBS got their hands on the original BBC versions.
And not only that, they realized that the Americans fans figured it out a lot quicker than everyone thought they would. So by the time Tom Baker says, "Okay, that's it. I've had enough. I'm done," everyone said, "Wait, what? What do we do? Oh, there have been other actors, right? Okay, so this.
How about that wet vet on All Creatures Great and Small?
Don't forget, this was the '80s now. Okay, John Nathan Turner, classic producer of the entire '80s, longest-serving producer of Doctor Who. He said, "Okay, well, who am I going?" He wrote down this list of things that basically weren't Tom Baker. See, a little vulnerability, blah, 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 and then the last thing he wrote down was straight hair. Then I looked up his wall of actors. He has, a whole bunch of photos of actors on his wall, and thought, wait a minute, I wonder if Peter Davison would do it. Let me give him a call. Ring, ring. Peter Davison was like probably the first person who could claim to have grown up with Doctor Who to play the part. He was 12 when the show started, liked it from the start.
And he was a TV name.
And he was already a TV name, yeah.
4 guys.
Yeah, he was a well-established actor, because it doesn't always happen that way. It doesn't usually happen that way. So, and it took him a while to say yes, but he eventually said, okay, yeah, I'll do it. And he was a very different Doctor from a lot of the other ones, but you can see little bits of all the other Doctors in there at some point or another. So, that was Peter Davison. Any comments, anyone?
Adric dies.
And then Adric died.
Spoilers.
The poor dinosaurs.
Then came probably after Tom Baker left, they decided the show had been on in Britain for on Saturdays for so long, and it was starting to wane in the ratings. So they said, let's try doing it during the week. So they showed it twice a week during the week, and the ratings actually went up. But also there was a lot of backlash. A lot of people were going, no, you cannot take Doctor Who off Saturdays. When Peter Davison finally said enough, and they asked Colin Baker to do it,
And this would have been pretty much the peak of the popularity here in America.
Right.
And during the 20th anniversary, Doctor Who was arguably pretty big here. There were articles in Time Magazine. Entertainment Tonight actually did a feature on the 20th anniversary convention in Chicago. Most PBS stations in the country, except here,
KCTS,
were showing this series, and it had quite a big fan base. And that was 30 years ago.
But this was in America. Over in Britain, it was going down, and people weren't. It was like it'd been around for so long. I think people was just starting to take it for granted. And then, of course, Margaret Thatcher came along. She was not a big fan of the BBC. She wanted to, a lot of sort of like what they're doing now over in there too, but give it less emphasis. And some of the management at the BBC went along with it, and it was just there was lots of shakeup at the BBC. And so after Colin Baker's first season, which by the way they went back to Saturday, but then they, instead of having 2 25-minute episodes during the week, they had 1 45-minute episode. And this was a major change for the show. This is different. So it was only 13 weeks, but you got the same amount of show. Then the BBC decided, you know what, I think it's time to try something different. And they took Doctor Who off the air for an extended break.
18 months.
Who remembers writing letters to the BBC and saying, bring it back? Nobody? No, I did.
That was about the time I got into fandom.
Oh,
I didn't
okay.
feel it was in my place to actually write to the BBC at that time.
I got a very nice response, actually.
Oh, did you?
A form letter, but.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Oh, Doctor in
Seriously?
Distress.
Doctor
There was,
in
oh yeah,
distress.
there was a charity single. I have it, yes, but I didn't think I was going to bring it up. But yeah, there's actually, this is the era of Band-Aid and Live Aid and USA for Africa, and a whole bunch of Doctor Who actors and singers in Britain got together and did a charity single to bring back the show. It didn't do a lot of good.
The
So-
newspapers
The
kinda
music
helped them.
video
Oh, yeah.
is an extra on the Trial of a Time Lord DVD box set.
The British media is sort of interesting. They'll kick a show like that's been on for a long time, but as soon as it gets canceled, they'll say, "Save the show." And that, in fact, what happened with Doctor Who and
Yeah.
other soaps have done the same thing.
Yeah. So, but here's the thing to remember. This was really the first break there had ever been in Doctor Who since it had begun, and this is over 20 years now. So, back then it seemed like a crisis. Now, after looking at what happens now, it's like, yeah. So,
Yeah.
but came back. They said, okay, we're gonna give you more episodes. So it was a 14-episode season. What they didn't say though is they were going to be shorter episodes. They were going back to the 25 minutes. So Trial of a Time Lord, which was the new series when it came back, because let's face it, the show was on trial, was a lot shorter than it had ever been before. And I'll be honest, Trial of a Time Lord is great, but I'm not sure we waited 18 months for this. It wasn't that great. But the show had new life, and they said, let's continue on. And then Michael Grade, the controller of the BBC, said, just not without Colin Baker. What? He's the star of the show. What's wrong with him? It's like, just change him. So,
Is he a Dalek?
I do believe that Michael Grade in the 80s was a Dalek. The good news is Michael Grade has come around and he said, yeah, I'm not sure that was the smartest thing I ever said. But anyway, again, so John Nathan Turner had no idea who to cast and saw it, but a couple of agents approached him and said, hey, have you thought about this guy named Sylvester McCoy? Went to see him in a show. He was doing a Pied Piper panto, which was written just for him, and liked what he saw. Did a couple screen tests for other actors that said, Sylv, you're my guy. So we had Sylvester McCoy for 3 seasons. But the problem is, but here's the thing. Then, okay, so Saturday wasn't working again, so they put it on back during the week. The problem is they put the show up against Coronation Street, which is the biggest rated soap opera in Britain. This would be like going up against 60 Minutes in the United States back in the 80s or something, when it was at its prime. I can't even think of what you could put up against now to be comparable.
Yeah, Downton Abbey's really popular.
Yeah. So the ratings were going down, and they're going down, and they're going down, and there's nothing they could do. And finally the BBC just said, okay, fine, show's over. But they didn't actually say show's over. They just said, yeah, we're thinking about it. We're going to maybe. And then about a year later, maybe. And it just kept going and going. Finally, I think everyone realized there's no show. It's there. It's done. Stick a fork in it. But there's major Doctor Who fans all over the world, and they're not going to let the show die. And I believe someone here is going to talk about it. Dan?
Yeah. Even though the program went off the air in December of 1989, the flicker of fandom still kept the show alive. I mean, the production office did officially close in August of '90, but there is an expanded universe of Doctor Who beyond just television. Virgin Publications, a book line in the UK, started a series of original adventures focusing on the Seventh Doctor. This lasted about 61 novels over the course of several years and featured new companions specifically for the Seventh Doctor. One of them continues to this day, Professor Bernice Summerfield, an archaeologist from the 26th century. Yay, Bernice fans!
Yeah.
And but there was such a fan outcry. It's like, okay, we've got these new adventures of the Seventh Doctor. What about the other incarnations? So Virgin Publishing went, okay, we'll now do a Missing Adventures line.
Two Doctor Who books every month. It was awesome.
Yes.
Yes.
That one lasted a little bit shorter, only about 30 novels. But these stories, these novels, fitted in between the televised stories. So there was a focus a bit on continuity. And the Missing Adventures focused on Doctors 1 through 6. Marvel Comics also came out with a yearbook, a series of comics and short stories. Also during this time, starting back in 1979 is the official Doctor Who magazine,
Woo!
which you can find at local retail outlets. And within this is articles about every episode, behind the scenes, font of knowledge, but it also maintained a continuing comics story. So 1979, Tom Baker was the Doctor, so you had a comic storyline in addition to the TV stories. Now, Doctor Who in comics, going back further in time, actually started 1964 with the first Doctor in a series called TV Comic. So Doctor Who and comics have been going hand in hand since practically the beginning and still continues to this day in Doctor Who magazine. And there's a comic company out of San Diego, IDW Comics. They have a booth here at Comic-Con. You will see
Boom.
Doctor Who comics at their booth. Oh, look, there's one now. Thank you, Doctor. So yes, that's Doctor Who in print. Also during what we call the wilderness years, where there was nothing on TV. A bunch of fans in England professionally produced some spin-off videos. The rights to the Doctor were not available, but the rights to certain characters and companions were. So you have a 3-part trilogy focusing on the Autons and certain secret service members of UNIT. You've got a couple videos called Mind Game and Mind Game Trilogy. Sophie Aldred reprising the role of Ace. Had Centauran and Draconian in there. Little vignette short stories. There's a 5-part video series called Probe, taking focuses on the character of Liz Shaw. She left UNIT, but she's investigating these odd happenings. It's kind of a BBC, pseudo-BBC version of the X-Files. There was also one video called Downtime, which actually brought back Victoria Waterfield, Sarah Jane Smith, the Brigadier, against the Great Intelligence, who we recently saw in the possible spoiler if you haven't seen it. Block your ears. 3, 2, 1. The recent Christmas special. Oh yeah, that was a good one.
Oh, yeah.
So we've had the Virgin Adventures, the Missing Adventures, the comics. Then in 1996, something happened on Fox Television.
Dun, dun, dun.
We had a TV movie. Sylvester McCoy reprised his role of the 7th Doctor and regenerated into the 8th, Paul McGann.
Any Paul McGann fans? Okay, yeah, all right.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Now, granted, he's only had the one TV movie adventure, but it sparked a whole nother slew of series. About this time, BBC Books figured, we want to get in on this novel thing. So Virgin lost their license, BBC Books picked it up. Whole new series of adventures focusing on the 8th Doctor in novels, to the tune of about 73 of them.
Start reading now.
Yeah. Plus,
Still working on them.
past Doctor adventures focusing on Doctors 1 through 7. So there's a whole slew of expanded universe items out there. Then in 1999, we've covered print, we've covered video. How about Doctor Who on audio? Eric mentioned that a lot of the episodes of the first 2 Doctors, Hartnell and Troughton, they were wiped by the BBC for reasons too lengthy to get into. However, some intrepid fans got creative. While they were watching the story, they took their reel-to-reel audio recorders, hardwired it into their TV so there's no ambient noise. The soundtracks of all episodes exist. They are being released by BBC Audio.
And all the missing ones are already out, by the way.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Some fans have put together what they call reconstructions because, bit of behind the scenes, there was a photographer that took still photos so he can provide it to the directors as a reference for their work. These are called telesnaps. Some fans took these telesnaps, married them up with the audio track, so you have what's called a telesnap reconstruction. They're out there. Check the internet. They are available. There's dub sites. They are good. Some people, some of these productions have incorporated some CGI work into them as well. So we've got that on audio. But in 1999, a company called Big Finish Productions. Ah, a subscriber. Because as you know, subscribers get more at bigfinish.com. Big Finish started the Doctor Who adventures on audio. The very first release is called The Sirens of Time, with Doctors 5, 6, and 7. So it was a big event. These monthly releases continue to this day, despite the fact that there's a new series on television. We are currently, this month is issue number 170. That's just the monthly range.
Start listening, folks.
There's a whole slew of spin-off audios. Dalek Empire, focusing on, I think you can guess. Another series called Cybermen, one focusing on Unit. 2 series worth of the Sarah Jane Adventures before there was even a Sarah Jane Adventures on television. And these are featuring the original actors, both Doctors and Companions. New companions have been introduced into the storyline as well. These audios fit between the audio adventures and the previously published novels. So there's a whole expanded universe of Doctor Who out there awaiting you, just beyond television. What else? Oh yeah, there have been some big guest actors in this audio series. Anybody familiar with David Warner? Sir Derek Jacobi?
Yes.
And before he was even the Doctor, a certain David Tennant was starring in these Big Finish audios. So check them out, bigfinish.com.
Subscribers get more.
Oh, yes.
At bigfinish.com.
So that's the expanded universe. Then something fantastic happened in the spring of 2005.
Well, yeah, let me backtrack a little, if I may. The whole Paul McGann movie was done in cooperation with Fox and Universal. So let's just say the rights to Doctor Who were kind of tangled up in a wibbly-wobbly spaghetti bowl of mess. For the 40th anniversary in 2003, however, BBC Interactive, the BBC's website, thought, hey, could we do a Doctor Who story? So they came out, so they investigated doing a story, and it did come out called Scream of the Shalka, and I actually got a little Scream of the Shalka news, believe it or not, to tell you later. But in the course of that, they were investigating the rights about the show, and they found that, wait, no, the BBC hasn't given up any rights to Doctor Who. We've got all the characters, we got everything. The only thing that Fox and Universal have to deal with are the new characters created for the TV movie, which is why you will never see, I can't remember her name, Daphne Ashbrook's character. Grace thank you. You'll never see Grace appear in Doctor Who again, most likely, or Chang Li, or Eric Roberts' incarnation of the Master, because those rights are tied up with other people. But
they have been involved with Big Finish audios.
This is true, they have. But so the BBC said, wait, we can make Doctor Who again? You know, we kind of missed that show, don't we? And so one of the, I think, was it Jane Tranter, was it? Took a chance and said, let's do Doctor Who again. And they convinced Russell T Davies, big name, well-known, well-respected TV creator in Britain, to be behind it. Well, of course, he's a Doctor Who fan. He's a big Doctor Who fan. So he said, yeah, I'll do it. And they, well, I mean, I think most of you have probably seen what happened from there. But here's the thing, so spring 2005, they finally started up Doctor Who again for the first time as a regular TV production in 16 years. And they were scared to death. They had no idea what was going to happen. Would this work? Would a new generation of fans who hadn't even grown up with the show watch the show and understand it and like it? Let's just say the numbers were phenomenal.
Still are.
Well, yeah, but no, it's just, it's so much a part of British culture that I think it was a case of everyone's looking around saying, what were we afraid of? But at the time, it's like all of a sudden, like after that first episode aired, they said, okay, we're doing a second season. We're commissioning that now. By the time the season was over, they said, okay, third season, go. So all of a sudden, Doctor Who has not only does it have a future, it's as big or bigger than it's ever been. It's just, I can't speak for these guys and say, but as a long-term fan, I'm thinking, wait, hold on. Doctor Who's being spoofed on American TV shows? They're coming over here to debut episodes. They're making episodes in America and around the world, other parts around the world. It's like there's all this stuff in the shops in Britain. There's all this stuff in the shops in America. Whoa, wait a minute, what happened? This little show I liked. It's like this small number of fans who are all like, waiting patiently for it to return. It's returned, and it's a monster.
When did we become mainstream? Do we like that?
Oh, yeah. I like it. So, hey, how many Doctor Who fans here? Raise your hand.
Awesome.
A few years ago at a con like this, we might have gotten a little tiny room and we might have gotten half the room filled. I mean, seriously, this is how big it's gotten. Here's the amazing part, though, because of changes in technology and just people realizing, oh, wait, why are we waiting? I remember when Colin Baker started as the Doctor, we were getting flicker vision copies, they're called, because people would actually point a camera at the TV in Britain, and you would send the tapes by snail mail to the United States, and then people dub them and send them out. But because of the different video standards, there's all these black bars that would fly up and down across the screen. Things got better, but now, let's just say, we're getting Doctor Who the very same day it's shown in Britain. And so is Canada. And not only that, and then the Australians and the New Zealanders are getting it the next day. But here's the bizarre part. They've just announced that not only are the United States and Canada getting it the same day, not only are Australia and New Zealand getting it the next day, but the next day also is now being shown in South Africa, which is one of the few English-speaking countries where it hasn't been big before. And here's the most bizarre part, Poland. I don't know if they're dubbing it into Polish all that quickly, or if they're getting subtitles, or they're just watching it in English and going, I don't know what they're saying, but I love how it looks. But anyway.
For those of you in the back, there are empty seats up here. Please don't be a stranger.
Yes, we have room.
Yes, there is room up front.
So,
and I think now's a good time to open it up to Q&A from the audience.
Yes, now before you ask any Qs and we give any As, I just want to point out, we are not from the BBC. We do not represent BBC America. We do not purport to represent any licensees or other holders of anything having to do with Doctor Who. We are just long-term, well-connected, and very knowledgeable fans. So, I'll be honest with you. If we don't know, I will tell you, hey, we don't know.
The show's coming back in a month,
Yes.
by the way. There'll be 8
March
episodes
30th.
starting in Easter, and they've announced the episode title. I don't know if
I
want to say it
happen to
here.
have some of that latest information right here.
This is all BBC press release stuff, so it's not really
Yeah.
spoiler.
All right. So here's what we know about this. So here's the deal. This is the second half of the 7th series, or as us long-term fans call it, was it season 33 now, something like that? Anyway.
34.
34. Thank you.
Yep.
The debut is March 30th, Easter weekend. So, and that first episode is called The Bells of St. John. It is an urban thriller, they call it. It's being set in contemporary London, and the publicity photo has the Doctor and Clara on a motorbike crashing through the Shard, which is this big new iconic tower that's been built in London.
It's not the Gherkin, is it?
Pardon?
Is it the Gherkin, or is it something different?
Maybe it's the Gherkin, I don't know.
It is the Gherkin.
Oh.
The Gherkin, all right. So they're crashing through a big plate glass window, okay? That's all we need to know. It was written by Stephen Moffat. It's directed by Cole McCarthy. And here's the tagline. There is something in the Wi-Fi. Plus,
Moffat.
plus, we're being introduced to a new villain called the Spoonheads.
Seriously?
Seriously, I think Spoonheads may be a placeholder name. We'll actually find out what they're called in the episode itself. That's my hope.
Oh, the Cardassians are back. Okay. Oh, wait, that's Star Trek. Sorry.
All right, so anyway, now, after that, episode after that has no title. It was written by Neil Cross and directed by Farron Blackburn. That's all I know about
Neil
it.
Cross is the guy who does Luther with Idris Elba, if you've seen that on BBC
Wasn't he involved
America.
in Spooks, too? Someone was involved in Spooks, one of these writers, yeah. Anyway. Then the next episode also doesn't have a name, but it was
Yes,
written...
it does.
It does now?
Yeah.
You're ahead of me. What's the name of that next episode?
The Cold War.
Ooh, the Cold War. All right. That one was written by Mark Gatiss, who wrote, what has he written? Which ones have he written?
Sherlock.
Well, Sherlock, yeah.
The Unquiet Dead.
The Unquiet, right, he wrote, yeah, he
Victory
wrote
of
The
the
Unquiet Dead.
Daleks.
He played Professor Lazarus in the Lazarus Experiment. So
Wrote several of those Virgin New Adventures I talked about.
That's true, he did. This one takes place on a Russian submarine during the Cold War. And there's a monster on it called the Ice Warriors. Any of you
They're
long-time
back.
Doctor Who fans? They are back, yes. The publicity photo they had for the Bells of St. John is very unclear, but there is some sort of shadow of an Ice Warrior on it, and it looks, two of them, right, and it looks like they're pretty much like they used to look, but they've been, like all the other monsters that have come back, they've been tweaked a little. Just a little. But you can definitely tell they're Ice Warriors. So, all right, after that, this one we do have a name for. The Phantom of the Hex. It's by Neil Cross, directed by Jamie Payne. We don't know much about it, except it does star Doug Ray Scott and Jessica Raine, if you know.
Jessica Raine's in Call the Midwife, and she will also be turning up in Adventures in Time and Space, Space and Time.
Right, which we will talk about.
We'll talk about.
Which is coming up.
Yes.
After that is a story with no name yet, but this one's also written by Mark Gatiss. And it's directed by Saul Metzstein, who's done some of the biggest, most weirdly iconic stories over the last few years. This is going to be an exciting one because, first of all, it takes place in the Victorian era. What? About half the Doctor Who stories take place in the Victorian. Yeah, guess who the guest stars are? Dame Diana Rigg and her daughter Rachel Sterling, playing mother and daughter, no less. Not only appearing in, or will they be appearing, but also Niamh McIntosh will be back as Vostra. Catherine Stewart is back as Jenny. And of course, Dan Starkey is back as everyone's favorite potato-headed Stontarn, Strax. Yeah! Yeah! You thought that was big? What about the penultimate episode of the season? One of his awards, he won several awards. Neil Gaiman, well-known writer, when he got an award for The Doctor's Wife, he said, "You would have to be crazy or insane to do that again. I'm on my third draft already." It's called The Last Cyberman. Ooh.
Who's the villain?
The Vardens. Anyway, sweet. It's directed by Stephen Wolfenden. Believe he's new. And two of the guest stars in this episode are David Warner and Warwick Davis. Warwick Davis is finally doing Doctor Who. I'm a happy fanboy there. And then we have the season finale. We don't know much about it at all. We have no name. We do know Stephen Moffat's writing it. We know Saul Metzstein's directing it. Two things also about the season that are circulating in the rumorverse. So Ryan, if you have that sign that you had once, fact, rumor.
Oh, didn't bring it
Hold
with
up
me
the
this
rumor
time.
one, right?
Rumor.
All right. First of all, apparently, by the end of the season, we will find out the Doctor's deepest, darkest secret. And the other rumor is there may be Zygons in the season somewhere. We don't know if this is true. We don't know if this is going to happen. But I think the Zygons are probably the next beast that should come back from the brink. You guys? No?
Oh.
Yeah,
All right.
they were a good monster.
Oh yeah. I messed up my research. One of these episodes, I cannot remember which one now. I'm sorry, I messed up. But I will tell you this: one of the titles that I forgot, "Journey to the Heart of the TARDIS," or "Journey to the Center of the," something like that.
Journey to the Center of the TARDIS.
That's the one. Yes. Yes. We're
Does what it
explore
says on the tin.
Yeah, exactly. We're gonna see what's in the TARDIS. So, yeah. Then. Now, here's what we know is coming up after the season is over, and that's going to end mid-May, first part of June, somewhere in there. Mm-hmm. Here's two things we do know for sure will happen. One, as Ryan mentioned earlier, they are making an anniversary docudrama about the early days of Doctor Who called An Adventure in Space and Time. David Bradley, who is Filch in the Harry Potter movies, is playing William Hartnell.
And he was in Dinosaurs on a Spaceship.
And who is Solomon in Dinosaurs on a Spaceship, right. And he's in Game of Thrones, right? I mean, this big name. And the few pictures I've leaked out so far, oh my goodness, he looks the part. The other actors they've cast, oh my goodness, they look just right. This is...
Not only is the telefilm focusing on the origins of Doctor Who, but covers the entire Hartnell Era up to the regeneration. So we're going to see a lot of iconic moments reproduced in color, such as Daleks crossing Westminster Bridge.
And this is written by Mark Gatiss, who is a super
right.
fan.
Oh, him again.
Yeah, him. The latest word that's come out, they're wrapping up filming now, and apparently people are talking about being menaced by bee people. So apparently we're going to see behind the scenes at filming the Web Planet. Then, here's the only other thing we know for sure. Well, two things we know for sure. One, there will be an anniversary special that takes place within Doctor Who continuity. It will be a story. It's going to be at least an hour long. A lot of people are saying 90 minutes. I'm kind of hoping for 2 hours. We'll see what happens.
I'm hoping for a mini-series.
I will get to that. And then we do know there will be, here's a shocker, another Christmas special.
Ooh.
After like 2 years, all of a sudden it's like, oh, we got to have a Doctor Who Christmas. There's always a Doctor Who Christmas special. Well, some of us remember like, the 20th century when there wasn't, but that's another story. Now, some fans have complained, what? It's the 50th anniversary and that's all you're going to do? The response from the BBC has basically said, that's only the tip of the iceberg. We're not going to tell you what else is coming up yet. So it's like, ooh. So.
And season 8 is confirmed.
And, and then the show is going to continue for, It is so big in the ratings, it's consistently in the top 10 every week, which it almost never did in the old days, back, in... Okay, 5-minute signal, 5-minute warning. That, it's going to go on. So we got the 5-minute signal. I think we should open the floor up. So real quick, yes?
They always come back. That's what he says. They always come back.
It's a time war. Come on, you can go back and fix things.
Okay.
All right.
Everybody repeat. Wibbly wobbly.
Timey-wimey. You, sir, at the microphone.
Yeah, as a newer fan, where's the best source to see as much of it? Where's the
Does iTunes have classic
central?
episodes?
Netflix.
Apparently a place called Netflix.
Just Netflix.
KBTC. Are you local? Do you get local TV?
I don't.
Okay.
I only get the internet. So Netflix
Okay.
is the best spot.
Netflix, KBTC, libraries have DVD. Oh, I got DVD news real quick. I'm going to zip through this if I could, by the way. The DVD release schedule has been announced for the rest of the year. These are British dates. The American ones are usually right after. So coming up, this month, the Aztec Special Edition with the episode of Galaxy 4 that was discovered recently. In May, the Visitation Special Edition, Inferno Special Edition. Now it gets exciting. In June, The Mind of Evil. This has been in black and white for a long, long time. They've finally got it recolored. They managed to reprocess the color, and then what they couldn't, they got a fan to put the color in. It worked out great. And the final Tom Baker story, Terror of the Zygons. Yes. Coming out in August, special edition of The Green Death and The Ice Warriors, the Patrick Troughton story, with the 2 missing episodes, like they did with The Invasion and like they've done with The Reign of Terror, are going to be animated. Scream of the Shalka, the webcast story I told you about. After 10 years, it's coming out on DVD. And then in November, for the anniversary, The 10th Planet. That is the last William Hartnell story where he regenerates. 1 episode is missing. They're going to animate that one too. And that will be the last episode of Doctor Who that the BBC holds that will be released. Except big question mark on Underwater Menace 2, which was recently found. I suspect it'll be an extra on one of those. So, question?
But it's always been their goal to have all episodes of Doctor Who available on DVD by November 23rd this year. Oh, also this summer on Blu-ray.
Oh, yes.
John Pertwee's first story, Spearhead from Space. Why this story? It's all on film.
So I totally had this dream last night where all the doctors got a message from the TARDIS and they all came to the same point in time everywhere to solve some big, huge thing. It was an amazing dream.
Did you record it?
Does Stephen Moffat know? He has a hit on you now.
So So my question is there any talk somewhere in the cosmos of, like, other than that one Christmas special where the two doctors came together? I can't even remember the name of
The Next Doctor.
Yeah. Time Crash.
Time
Yeah.
Crash, yes.
Yeah.
Is there any talk of more than one doctor being in the same point in time?
Here's the deal. We do not, at this stage, we do not know what is going to be in the anniversary special. However, I know. Okay, this will be the last thing I say, then we got to get out of here. So here's the deal. Apparently, Louise Jameson was told recently, could you make sure these dates are cleared? We might want you for something then. And John Barrowman, just this morning on British television, he has been saying up to this point, I don't know anything about the 50th anniversary. I don't know what's going on, but I want to be in it. Today, he's changed his tune. He said, we've started talking.
And
I do. So we will see what happens.
Big Finish is doing a big multi-doctor
That's true,
story
yeah. All right.
with Tom Baker, Peter Davison, Colin Baker, Sylvester McCoy, and Paul McGann.
We would love to keep answering your questions. We could talk about doctors
See us
for
out
a
in the
couple
hall.
more
Yeah, we'll
hours,
be out in the
but
hall.
we'll be out in the hall, yeah. Ask us there.
Thanks for coming.